Schools are no longer safe spaces for children as protectors turn predators. It's a worrying trend. While there are guidelines on how teachers should relate with students of the opposite gender, these are largely superficial and hardly adhere to. Students are, for example, barred from going to teachers' living quarters, while dormitories are out of bounds to teachers of the opposite sex. Some of the teachers who have been dismissed by the TSC get hired by private schools, which do not have a proper mechanism to vet their history. Out of the dismissed 1,228, some of 279 teachers had applied for a review of their cases without success. Many cases go unreported because some cultures promote child marriage. This is the figure there, the number of primary and secondary school teachers fired between 2010 and this year after being found guilty of having sexual relations with their teachers. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. And just also to zoom out so that you can see clearly what it says, also other stories that we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. Maybe I can just read also the sub-headline there. Sikh society tutors entrusted with pupils are notorious for taking advantage of schoolgirls and are responsible for most of the pregnancies reported, says Teacher Service Commission boss. And now stakeholders in the education sector are calling for concerted efforts to end the shameful vice. This story is tucked away on page 2 of the Daily Nation this morning. Judges given 14 days to answer accusations against 4 judges of the Supreme Court set to be investigated by the Judicial Service Commission. These are the faces here. Mrs. Justice Smokin Wanjala, Mr. Justice Mohammed Ibrahim, Lady Justice Njoki Ndungu, and Justice Jackton Ojwang. These are the faces that are given 14 days to answer, and accusations against 4 judges of the Supreme Court set to be investigated, as I've mentioned, by the Judicial Service Commission. This story continues on page 4 of the Daily Nation today. Also, Mutiambai, nominated police boss, Deputy Director of Counter-Terrorism Agency, gets top job as Boynet named Chief Administrative Secretary. And where did 51 million shillings liters of jet fuel go? Right, this is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Scandal deepens after fuel worth 5 billion shillings disappears from the stocks, triggering crises at Moi and JKIA. And you have this story tucked away at the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. A quick look at the Standard, and this is your splash today. 2022 plan for Uhuru Raila to form alliance. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard this morning. Kenyatta succession. Senator Minority Leader James Orengo reveals he held 4-hour talks with President Uhuru and hints at ODM working with Uhuru's Jubilee in next polls. This story continues on page 6 of the Standard. And Mutiambai is new police IG designate. Judge hands drunk drivers a reprieve. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard today. Also, a standalone picture here. Paris comes calling. President Uhuru welcomes Macron. And you can see French president's visit here. President Uhuru Kenyatta receives the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, at State House, Nairobi yesterday, where they held bilateral talks. You can follow this story also inside the Standard this morning. The Star is up next, and this is your splash. JSC starts hearings against 11 judges. It says this is Supreme Court's J.B. Ojwang appears before Commission over tarmacked Migori Road. That story also continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star. And Kakamega Kisii County's top list of sex pest teachers. They spend most time with children. Their calling is built on trust, but these are precisely the persons parents ought to worry about. Teachers. Shocking details on male teachers preying on teenage schoolgirls in exchange for little favors were laid bare by the TSC yesterday. And this story continues on page 2 of the Star this morning. Also, what families of Ethiopian crash victims expect. Based on the Montreal Convention, each family of Ethiopian Airlines crash victims could receive as much as 17 million shillings. Treaty says if airlines is found at fault, each affected passenger is to get a minimum value equal to 113,000 100 special drawing rights. This story continues on page 6 of the Star this morning. Also, woman gives birth to quintuplets, and you can see here them in the nursery. The 5 babies delivered by 28-year-old Evelyn Namuhula at Kakamega Hospital yesterday. These are bundles of joy, and of course you can see the nurses there and well-wishers also celebrating with the mother. Why young HIV-positive women will not get powerful ARVs soon? You can read all about that on page 10 of the Star. 30 witnesses against suspects who dug tunnel to steal from KCB. The story tucked away on page 24. MCA's shed rubber stamp tag as clash with Joho looms. This story continues on page 25 of the Star this morning. Let's continue to see what we have also on the front page of the Business Daily. And this is what you're waking up to today. 2.4 billion shillings jet fuel missing as oil firms blame KPC. Kenya Pipeline Company says only a forensic audit can reveal cause of loss. Oil marketing firms are locked, it says, in a war of words with the Kenya Pipeline Company over the alleged loss of 51 million shillings liters of jet fuel valued at 2.4 billion shillings. Actually, this is 51 million liters of jet fuel valued at 2.4 billion shillings, with two trading blame for the recent supply crisis at the Moi and Jomo Kenyatta International Airports. And this story continues also on page 4 of the Business Daily. And that story also is on the back page of the Daily Nation as well. Also, Macron, Uhuru set to sign 300 billion shillings rail and defense deals. French President Emmanuel Macron is set to sign deals worth more than 300 billion shillings with his Kenyan counterpart Uhuru Kenyatta during his 2-day official visit that kicked off yesterday. This story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. You can see a related picture also on the front page of the Business Daily. On the ticker, NIS man picked as new police chief, right? President Uhuru Kenyatta has picked Hilary Mutyambai to succeed Joseph Boynet above, who's shown above as Inspector General of Police. He was an Assistant Director at NIS. The story tucked away on page 5 of the Business Daily. Goes to show what the executive is, of course, having a fetish for the spies as well in most of his parastatal jobs. And you can follow the story on page 5 of the Daily Nation. Also, legal reforms lift Kenya's rankings. Kenya is among the top 10 African countries that have made significant reforms in laws and regulations targeted at improving gender equality over the past decade. This is according to a World Bank report. You can follow the story on page 12 and 13 of the Business Daily. Unclaimed cash of less than 0.5 million shillings to be paid at counties. Kenyans seeking reimbursement of less than 500,000 from the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority can now apply for payment through the Deputy County Commissioner's Office. You can follow all the details on page 19 of the Business Daily this morning. Let's cross borders now. We go to Tanzania, and we can see also what is a splash here. Dar is EAC's number 2 city in foreign direct investment inflows. It says Tanzania's commercial capital and largest city has been ranked second in East Africa and 14th among 42 cities on the continent in attracting foreign direct investment. $3.4 billion, the sum in FDI's Dar es Salaam city received, according to a new report. And you can read all the details also inside The Citizen. Government to issue statement on Boeing 737 MAX 8. This is what it says here. The government is contemplating whether to issue a statement on Boeing's 737 MAX 8 as the number of countries and airlines banning the medium-haul Wildhorse jet from the airspace increases, it says. And the ban is in response to crash by a similar plane owned by Ethiopian Airlines that killed all 157 people on board. So far, India has also banned these, and the recent report is that US also has buckled down under pressure and also has actually temporarily banned the Boeing 737, or they've grounded Boeing 737, I should say, Max 8 so far. This story is tucked away on page 2 of the Citizen this morning. DSC monthly turnover falls. You can follow that also inside the Citizen in Tanzania. Allow me to lift the Mwananchi for you to see what is also on the front page of Mwananchi, the Swahili version of the Citizen. Professor Lipumba apewa shoka la Maalim Seif. That is a story there. And mabilioni kuondoa foleni za magari Dar es Salaam is another story that you want to follow. Huu ndio wenyewe. And we can see Rais John Magufuli akiangalia mfano wa muonekano wa uwanja wa mpira wa miguu utakaojengwa jijini Dodoma kwa ufadhili wa mfalme wa Morocco. You can follow that story also inside the Mwananchi if you're waking up in Tanzania. In Dar es Salaam, Daily Monitor is up, and this is your splash today. Uganda accuses Rwanda of economic sabotage. It says, EAC chief says Rwanda's move is against region's interests. And this story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor this morning. Then and now, this is how it looks. Look at the way it is chock-a-block with traffic. But currently, because of this spat that is ongoing between Rwanda and Uganda, these roads are deserted. Trucks to Rwanda queue up at the no man's land at Katuna border post in Kabale district before the blockade. Now a yawning no man's land at Katuma border post in Kabale district after Rwanda ordered closure of its border to trucks from Uganda last month. You can follow the story inside the Daily Monitor. Also, NRM MPs meet to discuss Museveni sole candidature. Makerere University lifts suspension of Mwasa Bos Kamunyu. All that inside the Daily Monitor in Uganda. A quick look now at what we do have also on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And this is what we have on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Celebrities, coaches embroiled in alleged cheating scam. And these are their faces. Wealthy, we can see, I can't read all of them. We have here Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin, amongst others, right? You can read all about this also in the latest of the Wall Street Journal. Wealthy parents are charged in college entrance scheme is the story you can follow also. And Chinese hackers attack Navy review concludes. Europe grounds Boeing jets breaking from FFA stance. And so far we can see this also has changed so far since this particular paper went to press. And May's Brexit deal is rejected. Parliament votes down UK leaders' plan as March 29 deadline for leaving EU approaches. This is a story that you need to follow also inside the Wall Street Journal. This was yesterday's, of course, the time zone notwithstanding. This should be our latest, but the reason of the Brexit countdown will give you also this in our news bulletin momentarily. Let me try and see if we can actually just take up one or two pics of the editorial cartoon and see what they've done for us. And this is what we do have in the Start today. You can see the organizations in Africa that have interest in Africa so far. I'm here to recover lost ground. This is what Macron is saying, and you can see the way Africa is painted that color right now. And of course, I leave it for you to decipher what this is all about so far. Of course, this is all the interests of France. But of course, we can see deals have been signed. So this is our bilateral deals with most African countries. And Kenya also is in that particular plot as well. Let's see what Sacco has drawn for us as well. And this is his thoughts today. Project Kenya-Somalia border wall, budget 3.3 billion shillings. And you can see, all we can see now is just a barbed wire there. And here is your 3.3 billion shillings wall. So far, what is really happening with this particular Kenya-Somalia border wall? Right? I'll leave it for you to decipher. This is what has been captured here aptly by Stano inside the People Daily. Right, those are your editorial cartoons. I'll try and lift the others much later in the course of the program. But I'll be remiss if I don't show you also what is on the front page of Taifa Leo. Tumefungiwa Ikulu. This is what Senator are claiming. Alalamika kuwa, that is a senator actually, alalamika kuwa tangu handisheki imekuwa vigumu kukutana na Rais Kenyatta. And you can follow this story inside the Taifa Leo. Senator wa Kericho Aaron Cheriot amelalamika kuwa viongozi wa Rift Valley Kusini wameshindwa kumfikia Rais Uhuru Kenyatta tangu alipofikiana kufanya kazi na kiongozi wa ODM Raila Odinga mwaka jana. All the details also inside Taifa Leo on page 2. Mwanamke ajifungua watoto 5 kwa mpigo, and you can follow this story. You can see related pictures as well. And hawa ni watoto wa Evelyn na Muhula wa Kakamega. We can follow this story inside Taifa Leo as well. Right, just to remind you that this morning we're turning our focus on the state of Saccos in Kenya so far. There have been bugbears and fears so far around the security of the monies as well and the investment therein. So we shall be talking to most of our panelists from that sector this morning to just give us an inkling of what is really happening as far as the Saccos are concerned. But for now, we put this horse into full run by looking at the highlights. Hilary Mutambai, another intelligence man, to take over as Inspector General of Police. US joins other nations in grounding 737 MAX jets after second crash. And flooding death toll rises to 56 brest for Cyclone Idai in Malawi. Hilary Mutambai has been nominated for the position of Inspector General of Police to replace outgoing police boss Joseph Boynet, who has also been appointed for the position of Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. Until his nomination, the little-known Mutambai served as Assistant Director at the National Counter-Terrorism Center. He will be vetted by the National Police Service Commission before he can be formally appointed. NTV's Ken Mijungu has more on this.
Hilary Mutambai has been working at the National Counter-Terrorism Center, a multi-agency instrument for the coordination of counter-terrorism efforts domiciled at the Executive Office of the President. He was an assistant director where his work involved policy formulation and identifying gaps in counter-terrorism. His elevation comes as a surprise against bigger and more established names in security who are the likely candidates for the top job. He will be appearing before the National Police Service Commission for formal vetting before he takes over from Joseph Boynet, who concluded his 4-year term. Boynet will join the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife as the Chief Administrative Secretary. The President has also nominated Wycliffe Ogalo as the Commissioner General, Kenya Prison Service, Brigadier John Migui Waweru as the Director General, Kenya Wildlife Service, and Brigadier Vincent Naisho Leona as the Director General, Kenya Coast Guard Service. The National Police Service has also been reconstituted. The chairperson of the commission will be Eliud Ndungu Kinuthia, while other members will be Lilian Mutio Kiamba, Eusebius Karuti Laibuta, Naftali Kipchirchir Rono, Alice Otieno Owala, and John Tentemo Olemoyaki. Parliament already approved the commissioners who will be responsible for vetting the Inspector General, who will be in charge for a fixed non-renewable term of 4 years. Ken Mijungu, NTV. And the immediate former Commissioner General of Kenya Prison, Isaiah Osugo, is among senior officials at the correctional facility who face possible arrest and prosecution over the alleged 4.8 billion shillings arms procurement scandal. A firm associated with a sitting senator is among companies that were fraudulently awarded tenders worth billions of shillings by the Tender Evaluation Committee. NTV's Seth Olale has more on this.
Isaiah Osugo, who until Wednesday evening was Commissioner General of Kenya Prisons, has been subjected to disciplinary proceedings which include possible arrest and prosecution. Osugo, alongside Kenya Prisons Chief Finance Officer Sarah Kerandi, Head of Procurement Unit Mageto, and 5 other members of the Tender Evaluation Committee, are being held accountable for issuing irregular contracts amounting to 4.8 billion shillings at the correction facility. An internal audit has revealed how 10 classified companies were irregularly awarded contracts for supply of assorted security items worth 4.8 billion shillings through gross violation of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015 and the Public Management Act 2012 from the initial stage of planning, budgeting, tender adjudication and award. Firecrest Systems received the largest tender award amounting to 2.2 billion shillings. Pakistan Ordnance was awarded a tender to supply assorted security items worth 597 million shillings, with Delta Enterprises receiving a tender award worth 570 million shillings. Pakistan Ordnance was awarded another tender that amounts to 478.5 million shillings, with Mildat SP receiving 342.7 million shillings. Millways Enterprises, a company associated with a sitting senator, was allocated 200 million shillings. Sumsan Yat Savunma Santaki obtained a tender worth 158.7 million shillings. Rapec General Supplies was awarded 98.7 million shillings, with 44.6 million shillings directed to Auto Link Systems. World One Agencies obtained 119 million shillings. The assorted security items include guns, tear gas, bulletproof helmets, cleaning kits, plastic batons, pepper spray, magazine pouches, and anti-riot helmets, among others. An internal audit established that the tendering process was not fair, open and transparent, and that the alleged processes were pre-designed in favor of specific bidders. It has recommended that 4.8 billion shillings worth of irregular contracts be cancelled and the matter be reported to investigating agencies. Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission submitted the investigating files to the Director of Public Prosecution, Nurin Haji, for necessary action to be taken against those implicated. Source within the ODPP has indeed confirmed that the files are being finalized before arrest and prosecution of the entities and persons involved be directed. Seth Olale, NTV, Nairobi.
Now, a fresh petition has been filed seeking the removal of Chief Justice David Maraga from office over claims of gross violation of the Constitution. The petition, which was filed by one Yusuf Ibrahim Dimbil and which has been received by the Judicial Service Commission, accuses Maraga of attending political rallies, employing people from one ethnic group to the judiciary, and making utterances that are unconstitutional. The petitioner argues that by attending political rallies, the CJ has violated public trust. Maraga is also accused of proposing the bypassing or vetting of the nominee for the education docket, George Magoha, an accusation that Maraga has denied before and termed malicious. Maraga is also accused of going against the spirit of fair trial when he quoted what the petitioner termed as an extract from a decision yet to be released during the ruling of the presidential petition that nullified the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Let's buckle down to some business where the Kenya Bureau of Standards Acting Manager Director Bernard Nguyo has narrowly escaped civil jail after court reordered him to conduct sampling and testing of fertilizer which allegedly contained mercury. Nguyo presented himself after fresh summons were issued by trial magistrate Kennedy Cheruiyot, requiring him to explain why he should not be jailed for disobeying the court. The magistrate noted that the order had never been obeyed, despite clear evidence that the acting MD was fully aware of the court decision that tests ought to have been carried out. Nguyo said the consignment in question is under seal by KRA and not KEBS. The court has ordered the taxman to facilitate the access to the warehouse by removing the seals for retesting.
The orders, Nuno's size, was for you to retest fertilizer.
The Kenya Defense Forces killed 3 Al-Shabaab terrorists and captured 1 in flight while on patrol in Somalia. The KDF soldiers who are operating under the Africa Union mission in Somalia engaged the pocket of Al-Shabaab militants in Burahache, northern Somalia, and managed to capture 2 AK-47 rifles, 1 SLL rifle and assorted ammunition. Their small victory comes at a time when Kenya, along with her soldiers, continue to fight the war against terrorism within and across its borders as it supports AMISOM. The Kenya Media Sector Working Group has called on the Director of Public Prosecutions and the police to investigate controversial breaches of threats and smear campaigns against the media. This comes after Neno Evangelism Center Pastor James Nganga threatened Citizen TV journalist Linus Kaikai as well as controversial preacher Dr. David Owor's followers repeatedly conducted online bashing against any media outlet that points out the preacher's questionable activities or those of his ministry. The Journalists' Union insists that the media will continue to stand on guard as a watchdog, leaving no individual or institution behind.
Please separate preaching na hizo sarakati za news anchor. Separate. Nakwambia tu kijana. I'm telling you like a chief general commander. Chief general commander.
The words of a controversial preacher stirring up more controversy. Neno Evangelism Center's Pastor James Nganga fires a shot against the media and specifically at Citizen TV's Linus Kaikai, who called out controversial preachers such as himself. The media stakeholders are not taking it lying down.
Media as the fourth estate has a duty to hold other estates, including the clergy, to account for their actions. The work of religious leaders impacts the society, and the media must interrogate them on behalf of the public, which the two institutions serve, without fear or favor.
So nothing can stop the religious sector or any other Kenyan who feels aggrieved from coming to the media council to complain, but to unleash, send out sponsored clips to attack journalists and media. That is unacceptable.
Nganga is not the only man of the cloth who has been in conflict with the Fourth Estate. Dr. David Owor, the self-proclaimed prophet's followers, have, like clockwork, launched online attacks on any media outlet and its journalists who cover a story that sheds negative light on him or his ministry. The most recent incident was the property debacle that saw the Ministry of Repentance and Holiness stand accused of brainwashing a Nairobi lawyer and taking over her property. With such allegations and Nganga's accusations of killing a woman in a road accident in 2015, as well as the preachers hoodwinking unsuspecting people, the calls for action are getting louder.
The Kenya Media Sector Working Group takes great exception to such behavior from the religious leaders and draws the attention of the National Police Service and the Director of Public Prosecution to the actions of these said religious leaders, especially their issuing of direct threats to journalists as well as online bullying by their followers.
Church leaders have been urged to call out preachers who do not represent the ideals of the faith they purport to profess, so as to shield the integrity of Christianity. Helen Aura, NTV.
Now, it turns out that Project Simba, the public-private partnership that Kenya Airways is seeking to enter into with the Kenya Airports Authority, was meant to increase the number of jobs at JKA from 950 to 3,000. Ironically, it is the fear of job losses that may have led aviation workers to take part in an industrial action that has derailed the project's plans. Here's Alex Mwangi with the salient features of Project Simba and why it remains a tough plan to follow through.
When Project Simba was conceptualized, one of the aims was to take advantage of the fact that Africa's aviation market has the highest growth rate in the world. At 5.1%, it is the only region with annual growth exceeding 5%. The rationale behind the idea to have the national carrier, Kenya Airways, granted a 30-year concession to operate the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport was based on, among other things, these crucial statistics: that KQ's main competitors, Ethiopian Airlines, Rwandair, and the three Gulf carriers are all 100% state-owned and subsidized. That all of them have engaged in aggressive growth strategies focused on volume and market share. That Ethiopian Airlines rolled out its Vision 2025 in 2011 and at the time was behind KQ, South African Airways, and Egypt Air in terms of capacity. Currently, however, it has risen to the top and now has roughly 4 times the available seat kilometers capacity of Kenya Airways. Another key reason that informed the privately initiated investment proposal that KQ gave the Kenya Airports Authority last year is that JKIA is trailing other hubs in Africa when it comes to annual passenger volumes. JKIA handles 7.2 million passengers per annum, while Addis Ababa handles 12.9 million passengers. To the south, Johannesburg handles 21.2 million passengers. Crucially, KQ envisaged that Project Simba will create an additional 25 to 30,000 jobs in the aviation industry and its associated businesses. It also targeted to have the aviation industry match the Ethiopian benchmark of contributing 7% to GDP. If all had gone according to plan, Project Simba was to have the concession agreement between KQ and KAA signed at the end of this month. Recent happenings have, however, thrown into disarray the plans for the concession, taking government officials, those from KQ and KAA, back to the drawing board. Questions abound on how prudent it will be for the government to ram through the concession down the throats of workers, even as it separately seeks to find ways to change the flight path of KQ back into a profitable trajectory, following years of turbulence that have seen the national carrier make huge losses. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Embattled sugar miller Mumias slid further into the lost territory, posting 15.1 billion shillings after tax loss in the year ended June 2018. This loss is 122% worse than the loss reported a year earlier. In the period under review, Mumias Sugar saw its impairment charges shoot from 2.6 billion shillings to 4.6 billion shillings, a key factor underlying the deteriorated performance. The miller also grappled with shortage of cane, registering 283,000 tons delivered, a 32% decline from the previous year. This adverse performance comes at a time when the Ministry of Agriculture has indicated plans of establishing a committee to revive Mumias Sugar. Now, the government is proposing to scrap off some clearing agencies at border point to curb losses that businesses have been recording arising from delayed clearance of goods. Reforms on reducing the time spent registering property, business and attaining construction permits have also been put forth.
The high cost of transporting goods, tedious bureaucratic processes and expensive labor have been blamed for the frustrations the private sector faces when doing business. The government has now come up with a raft of policies to make the business environment more favorable. A proposal will be submitted to Cabinet next month to reduce the current 27 agencies tasked with clearing goods to just 4. If approved, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, Kenya Ports Authority, Kenya Revenue Authority and Kenya Railways will be the only agencies with a mandate to clear goods coming into the country.
Registering a company used to take 3-4 months. Today it takes about a week. We want to cut down to 1 day. And this requires use of revision in processes, deploying of technology to make sure we can actually do that. Now, in the ports, the reforms, as I said, are all the ports within the country. We want to make sure that what works is what we should have without compromising on some of the things that are important for us. Security is important, payment of revenues, but customs are good.
From the 1st of April, Kenyans will also see the process of registering property reduced to 12 days, down from 80 days.
In 24 months, we will have put all our registries fully online. However, full integration and full benefits from the system will take several years. But just the basic idea of putting systems online, that should happen within the next 24 months countrywide. But in Nairobi, we want to do it by the end of the year.
While Kenyans' performance on the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index has tremendously grown over the years, a lot more needs to be done to make the regulatory environment conducive for doing business. Lillian Kierie, NTV.
Now, new research by World Tourism and Travel Council has revealed that travel and tourism in Kenya grew faster, exceeding the regional average and that of other economies in sub-Saharan Africa. In 2018, the sector grew by 5.6% and contributed 790 billion shillings and 1.1 million jobs to the Kenyan economy. This rate is faster than the global average of 3.9% and the sub-Saharan Africa rate of 3.3%. The sector remained resilient in the first 2 months of 2019 as international arrivals continue to increase, even in days after the Dusit D2 terror attack. The Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife says this was enabled by speedy action to arrest the attack, as well as relative calm in the political environment. The ministry now says it is looking to build on the momentum realized in 2018 when the country crossed the 2 million shillings mark in international, or 2 million mark in the international arrivals, bringing in 157 billion shillings in earnings. Now, Singapore will temporarily suspend all Boeing 737 MAX flights, according to the Civil Aviation Authority, 2 days after an Ethiopian airline crash that killed all 157 on board. The suspension will affect Silk Air, an arm of Singapore Airlines, as well as China's Southern Airlines, Garuda Indonesia, Shandong Airlines and Thai Lion Air, the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore said in a statement. Hours later, Australia's Civil Aviation Safety Authority followed Singapore's lead with a temporary suspension to review the risks, citing the best interest of safety. Indonesia and China had already grounded their fleets of the U.S. plane maker's latest model after it suffered a second fatal crash in less than 5 months. Nearly 40% of the in-service fleet of Boeing 737 MAX jets globally is grounded, according to industry publication Flight Global, including 97 jets in the biggest market, China. And the United States finally joined Europe, China and other countries in grounding Boeing that particular CEO's 737 MAX jets because of safety concerns after an Ethiopian airline plane crash that killed 157 people. The second disaster involving the 737 in less than 5 months, as I mentioned earlier. The grounding was welcomed by air workers in the United States. John Samuelson, international president of the Transport Workers Union of America, which represent aviation workers and flight attendants, said the grounding of the fleet was right both for air travelers and aviation workers. The world's biggest plane maker is facing its most serious crisis in years, as the decades-old 737 program, one of its most reliable sources of cash and profits, takes a severe blow to its prestige. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, cited new satellite data and evidence from the scene of Sunday's crash near Addis Ababa for its decision to ground the planes. In a statement shortly after U.S. President Donald Trump announced the planes will be grounded, it was the second time the FAA has halted flights of a Boeing plane in 6 years.
Ground all flights.
Been displaced by that since storms that began more than a week ago caused rivers to break their banks, leaving villages underwater and knocked out power and water supplies in some areas. Now Malawi has been put on alert for more rain and flooding on Thursday, which is today, when tropical cyclone Idai is expected to make landfall through Beira in neighboring Mozambique. The Department of Climate Change and Meteorological Services said this. The cyclone will dump heavy rains and wind over Mozambique before moving to southern Malawi and later Zimbabwe. The department's director, Jolam Nkonkwe, said this also. Regions of Mozambique have also already been affected by flooding. Malawi's President Arthur Peter Mutharika, who declared a state of disaster in southern Malawi late on Friday, cancelled trips to the northern region of Malawi to attend to the flooding. And at least one person was killed and dozens of children were among those feared trapped after a four-story building containing a primary school collapsed in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. Outside the hospital where people rescued from the building site were taken for treatment, anxious relatives sobbed and ran towards ambulances as they arrived, hoping their loved ones were inside. Adenishan Timamu, General Manager of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, said that the agency had recovered one death so far in the disaster and had rescued nearly 50 people. At the site of the collapsed building, workers shoveled debris as crowds gathered. Residents say it's around 100 people. Children had attended the school.
To my mom, his response to the treatment. So I thank God and I pray to those people that die, that God will heal their family.
And Britain could face a long delay to Brexit if lawmakers cannot agree a way forward in coming days, according to Prime Minister Theresa May, after lawmakers voted to reject leaving the European Union without a deal in any circumstance. Lawmakers are due to vote on a possible extension today, when the government will also say that if no agreement has been approved by Parliament by March the 20th, it is unlikely that the European Union will approve any extension as its summit on March 21st and 22nd without a specific reason to do so.
Mr. Speaker, I also confirmed last night that if the House declined to approve leaving without a deal on the 29th of March 2019, the Government would bring forward a motion on whether the House supports seeking to agree an extension to Article 50 with the EU, which is the logical consequence of the votes over the past 2 days in this House. The Leader of the House will shortly make an emergency business statement confirming the change to tomorrow's business. The motion we will table will set out the fundamental choice facing this House. If the House finds a way in the coming days to support a deal, it would allow the Government to seek a short, limited technical extension to Article 50 to provide time to pass the necessary legislation and ratify the agreement we have reached with the EU. But let me be clear, such a short technical extension is only likely to be on offer if we have a deal in place. Therefore, the House has to understand and accept that if it is not willing to support a deal in the coming days, and as it is not willing to support leaving without a deal on the 29th of March, then it is suggesting that there will need to be a much longer extension to Article 50. Such an extension would undoubtedly require the United Kingdom to hold European Parliament elections in May 2019. I do not think that would be the right outcome. But the House...
All right, we want to buckle down to a discussion this morning. I have my guest with me. I've been eagerly waiting also for the regulator to join us. This is Sasra, the CEO, John Mwaka, and also Alphonse Kiaoi, who is the CEO of Mwalimu Sacco as well. And this is generally just to discuss the state of Saccos in the country. And right now we understand that the Directorate of Criminal Investigation is appealing to members of the public who may have been defrauded through Ekeza Sacco, Gakuyu Real Estate or Gakuyu Investment Club, who live in Nairobi or Kiambu counties to report their grievances at its headquarters along Kiambu Road next Monday or on Monday next week at 9 a.m. Those who intend to submit their complaints have been requested, I should say, to carry their bank statements, deposit slips, or any other documents relevant to their transactions with the said organizations. The DCI says it will set a date for those from other counties to submit their complaints. The DCI is investigating alleged financial malpractice running into billions of shillings said to have been orchestrated by David Ngare Kariuki, who is also known as Huyo. So this is what we train our focus today. Is your money safe? And we had also, we're lifting that also from the Business Daily headlines about, of course, the state of the Saccos in the country and how healthy are they. I've invited our panelists to join us this morning. We have Mary Mungai, who is a commissioner of cooperatives in the Ministry of Trade and Industrialization. Also, we do have the CEO of Stima Sacco. This is Chris Useki, who is the CEO of Stima Sacco. We have with us Dr. Bitange Ndemo, who is a columnist with the Business Daily, and also he is going to weigh in and give us, of course, an independent mind as far as the Saccos is concerned. I'm eagerly waiting for Sasra CEO John Mwaka, who had promised to be here this morning, of course, to continue with this particular discussion. So if you have questions, you can head over to a Twitter handle, which is AM Live NTV. AM Live NTV is our profile name on Facebook, and 20686 our SMS total as well. So we are going to take a broader aspect on the state of Saccos in the country. Should we be having bugbears and fears? Ekeza Sacco, did it really run through the whole gamut of the structures of a Saccos or a Sacco, or was it a pyramid scheme? And how can we actually have that discernment to know this is a pyramid scheme and this is a well-structured Sacco, which is anchored according to the Constitution of Kenya as well? Good morning, gentlemen and lady.
Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe we can just begin with a broader overview from Dr. Bitange Ndemo, looking at what Ekeza has been, of course, doing so far. And the DCI now is on them and is telling people who have been defrauded to actually report to the office. What do you think is the current state of the Saccos in the country, from your own perspective, as an independent, I should say, so to speak?
In my own view is that the government has done wonderful. As you know that when the Sacco started, there was no regulatory framework. But at some point, the government stepped in to develop the regulatory framework. SASRA, I think, came in, which year was it? 2011. Long after these organizations had been established.
Yes.
Of course, there were many problems before, and it was assumed with the regulator that there will be less of the problems that we see today. And you bear in mind that it is not just SASRA or the Ministry of Cooperative. There is a sectoral arrangement where central bank, all the financial sector, even CMA comes in. So it's surprising that this happened when we have a very strong regulatory mechanism. For example, you can't move like 2 million from one account to the other before either central bank or the financial reporting center, or we have all these agencies. So the question people ask themselves, where was, for example, the financial reporting center? They should have actually picked that, or central bank should have picked that. So you can't just focus on the few here. So it's a case where we have a proper regulatory mechanism, but something happened which we don't know. Which would help us even do better in the days to come, because we have, central bank has been doing so well with this. But when such small things come up, there is no way the ministry would know that some behind the scenes transactions are happening. That can only show up in those other agencies that monitor such. Someone should have seen that so much money is moving out of the care of people's money to some other places. Someone should have raised the
red
flag.
flag.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Mary, thank you for joining us. I can see I have also a text of apology here from John Mark. I can't make it. It says, oh, due to an avoidable circumstance, last minute, or he says, my apologies that I will not be able to make it due to a personal emergency that I need to attend to by 7 a.m. And also, I tried to get the CEO of Cusco to be with us. Also, he pulled out at last minute. I don't know why they are bugbears and fears to actually come on the phone and speak about this. But so much of the burden will be on you this morning, Mary, to just try and explain to us what so far is happening, especially with the KEZA. And how did this slip the regulatory, how did it slip so many agencies as far as you know, financial prudence is concerned with SASRA?
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. First, I want to say that the state of cooperatives in Kenya is not as dim as it was portrayed the other day in the
Business Daily.
We have seen what cooperatives have done for this country. If you look at agricultural cooperatives, we know coffee cooperatives did a wonderful job in as far as coffee is concerned. If we look at the transport cooperatives, we can see the services they offer this country. If we look at the Saccos, and Saccos is just one segment of the cooperative, because I saw it was written 22,000 Saccos. 22,000 registered are cooperative society. Sacco is only one type of the cooperatives, which forms about 12,600 entities that have been registered. So what I want to say, if you talk to most of the Kenyans in this country, they will say what the Sacco has done for them. They'll say what the coffee cooperatives have, what the dairy cooperatives have done for them. So the cooperatives have been very fundamental in the socio-economic development of Kenyans in this country. So I want to say cooperatives have played a very big role.
Right. Maybe even before we drill deeper, it would be nice then, because for many, they don't draw demarcation lines between what is a Sacco, an investment Sacco. You know, that's where we have all this confusion. So we jumble all this together as Saccos, and then we don't get any clarification.
Exactly.
So maybe it will be prudent of you also to just tell us blow by blow, what are the differences?
Okay. When people come together to form a cooperative, they come together because they have a common need. If people, let's say from Nyandarua, want to come together because they have a problem with marketing of their horticultural produce, then we register them either as horticultural or agricultural marketing with a focus on horticulture. So the business model is always around the need you want to address. So when people come together as transport cooperatives, what is it? For transport cooperatives, and now we have standard bylaws, is where we want self-regulation within the transport industry so that they are able to adhere to NTSA requirements, IG requirements, Ministry of Transport requirements. So that forms around transport, moving people or goods from one place to the other. When we come to financial, and these are the Saccos that we always talk about, they have come together so that they can get affordable credit. Why am I saying affordable credit? Because they come and save. When they are getting loans from their Sacco, they have an agreed framework that because this is for us, we want very affordable interest rates.
Yes.
So that, you know, comparable, we are very competitive to the other players in the field. When we look at housing cooperatives, why are they coming together? The business model is that they want to come together and as a group, driving from economies of scale, they are able to provide housing units to their members. When we move forward, there is also, we are increasingly seeing housing cooperatives or investment cooperatives now no longer just focusing on their members, but focusing on the larger public. So it is the cooperatives are defined by the business model you are doing. And that's why I want to say, like coffee cooperatives, you have about 450 coffee cooperatives. We have about 200 or 300 dairy cooperatives revolving around dairy business, bulking milk and selling together. And from the proceeds of coffee, from the proceeds of dairy, then they are able to form a separate entity, Sacco, where they can channel their money through. And I also want to say from the beginning is that we have two different types of Saccos. We have where you save, and if you save in that particular entity, the Sacco, there's one that you cannot withdraw your deposits. Because normally one has a share and deposit. When the share, of course, it's a sunk whatever for the benefit of this entity, but there is a deposit that is accredited to the individual. There's that entity where when you save, when you put your deposits, you cannot withdraw until the time you'll want to leave the Sacco.
Right. Yeah. A good point to just leave it at. Then when we come back, of course, we shall hear also from Chris as well. We're going to take a short break. Remember, you can head over to our Twitter handle, which is AM11TV. AM11TV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20686 is our SMS portal. I'm also getting an information here from Alphonse Kaio, who is the CEO of Mwalimu Sacco. He says it appears I will not be able to join you due to an unavoidable situation. So he will not make it, but nonetheless, we continue the conversation, and we'll also ask you to drive a show with us. You can call in, ask questions, and share your contributions as well. Our platform is AM Live NTV. That is our Twitter handle. Also, AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20686 our SMS portal. So don't go away. Much more coming up on the other side of the break. We continue with the discussion. Let's see the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Saccos in the country. Welcome back. You're watching In the Market here on AM Live, and we're discussing the state of the Saccos in the country. Now, on Monday, we had this particular splash on the front page of the Business Daily, where they were asking why 1 trillion shillings Kenya Saccos are a ticking time bomb. Or you can follow all the details on page 4. But it says savings of the 14 million Kenyans at stake as mismanagement rocks cooperative sector. And just to read the snippet of what they're saying, an increasing number of Kenyan Saccos are reeling under the weight of mismanagement, fraud and bad loans that have put the 1 trillion shilling sector on a path of instability that, if not reversed, could have damaging contagion on the entire economy. At stake are hundreds of billions of shillings of members' savings that have either been lost or are at the risk of being lost as more and more cases of financially troubled savings and credit cooperative societies come to the fore. Just 3 Saccos, Mwalimu, Ekeza and Stima Investment Cooperatives are together estimated to have lost their members upward of 3.6 billion shillings. And it continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. And we have, of course, the sector players here with us. Some of them have not been able to make it this morning. They've just sent messages of regret this morning. We want to continue and just hear from you as well, looking at that particular. This is where you're saying the figures given by the Business Daily, Mary, here. This is the state of Kenyan Saccos, the parameter and performance. Number of Saccos, 22,000. So you say this is not it. Ali is what you're actually commenting on. Yeah. So where is the clarification?
The clarification is that the total number of registered cooperatives, when they cited 22,000, they should have said cooperative societies. Saccos is about 12,600. And the membership is in the range maybe of 8 million. But having said that, I have seen all of us Kenyans trying to use Saccos to be equals to cooperatives. What I'm trying to say, cooperative is a bigger pie. In that segment, about half of the cooperatives are Saccos. Okay. That's what the clarification I wanted to do.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's hear from Chris Useki, who is the CEO of Stima Sacco, as reported here. Do you think the reporting here by the Business Daily is true? And what is the current state of play as far as your Sacco is concerned?
Well, thank you for the invitation and viewers. And what I would want to observe is that it's like the press wants things that look bleeding, things that look alarming. I wouldn't think that this is the state of affairs in respect of cooperatives. And like the commissioner has just clarified, there are differences in cooperatives. And when Saccos are called, when you say the name Sacco, it is like you're saying cooperatives. That's not right. Now, when it comes to the way Saccos are governed, they actually are self-regulating. When you look at a Sacco, a typical Sacco setup, yes, you realize that inside the Sacco is a supervisory committee, even without any other body. A supervisory committee is completely independent of the board of directors or the management committee of that Sacco. Yes. And it's supposed to oversee the transactions, to see that all things that are done are proper and are in order. When you look at how Saccos operate, in the first place, there must be a budget. Outside a budget, there is nothing that can be bought, or I mean, there is no expense that can be incurred. And so looking at the total mechanism of how a Sacco runs, the budget is approved by the annual general meeting and not the board. And therefore, there will be a question in the first place, how a board member or how a staff or how anybody would spend anything outside that budget. And therefore, to like say that Saccos are a time bomb, it's like, it's not understandable in that what we are seeing is Saccos are now going to change this economy. In that, if you listen to the testimonies of members of Saccos, yes, or even members of the public, and you could even testify yourself, that almost all the children that have been educated, almost all the investments people have done, all the vehicles you see on road, The buildings you see around, they have been financed by Saccos. So how on earth it is that it's a time bomb? Surely it's not understandable. In fact, we are looking at the bigger picture, like how can we play in this big four agenda? Because into the housing, it is Saccos that does housing. Go to estates and find out the names of those estates. Arambe estate. I mean, they are Sacco things. And therefore, I think it's underestimation to try to say what Saccos have done for this economy. I think the commissioner has just mentioned about other cooperatives.
All right. Bitange, before we come to Marie.
Well, like in any organization, there are good things that Saccos have done, but we must also admit that there are some problems that need to be sorted out. I got a chance to talk to the financial regulator sometime in Mombasa, and I said what we can do from here going forward is to improve these financial institutions. And the only way that you can improve like Saccos is to make sure that every member, the commissioner, the regulator, they can be able to see the transactions, what is happening. If it is the budget that was approved and they see how it is spent, they can be able to see. What I'm trying to explain to you, this is the new technology for blockchain we are talking about. That any resources that are moved to pay for land or to pay for housing, every member gets the information, and then if there is something they see that is wrong, they can raise the issues there. That's why I said the government has done well with respect to the financial regulations, but there must be some problems somewhere that some people are not doing their jobs. And I pointed out that you cannot move such money that we are reading without central bank or without the financial reporting questioning where the money is going. If they did question, we should have arrested this problem much, much earlier. And that's the reason why they work together as a team to protect public resources. And that's the questions we must ask. So you don't have a full complement of the people who should take responsibility for resources of citizens that have been wasted.
Thank you. And maybe just to ask, because the recent report by SASRA, it says a total of 110 licensed deposit-taking savings and credit cooperatives, that is Saccos, operating in the country have not met the mandatory institutional capital requirement, raising questions on the financial soundness. This is a report by SASRA, and I wish John Mwaka was here actually to clarify this. And this is what they normally call the IRC, ICA, that is the institutional capacity adequacy ratio of 8%. If they're not able to meet this particular mandatory requirement by the regulatory, what does it tell us about the state of play of the cooperatives?
Thank you very much. I want just first to go back to that headline, the 1 trillion.
The Business Daily?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to say the economy of this country, if cooperative movement has an asset base of 1 trillion, it shows how important it is. Is the state of the Saccos, now we focus on the Sacco, how bad is it? They are very good operating Saccos. However, because the model has been so successful, we have had bad apples coming into play. And is the government not able to regulate? I want to say even before SASRA came, there is a framework for regulations. And the framework for regulation is really mainstreamed in the bylaws of all cooperatives. Every member is supposed to have a copy of the bylaws because it outlines what is expected of the member. The member is the one who is charged with making decisions on how the Sacco will go. And I'll say again, for the Saccos, they normally decide, most of the Saccos have said 12% interest rate on a declining balance. What does that mean? In effective, we are saying at the end of 3 years or 4 years, a member, the effective interest rate is about 6.7, which is very affordable for every Kenyan. So I'm saying there is bylaws that govern. The bylaws stipulate what should be done in every AGM, and it's a requirement, which means they also support government in ensuring compliance within. And the decision maker, I said, is the member. The member is the one who elects the management. And this is where we say, please elect people who you want to be stewards of your portfolio or whatever. So what I'm saying is that the regulatory framework is there. But however, it was observed that Saccos are growing and have very huge chunks. I think we are talking about Saccos with billions of deposits. And because of that, the law, the CAP 490, actually recognized that there will come a time when Saccos will now be almost operating like quasi-bank, in that a member can go over the counter and withdraw money. And that's why I was bringing in the distinction between withdrawable and non-withdrawable. We have the DTS, the ones that are licensed by Sacco, we call them deposit taking. The difference here is that a member can channel his salary there and go and withdraw. It is a withdrawable service, where the other one I said you can only withdraw on exit from the Sacco. So SASRA has about 174 registered or licensed, sorry. Every cooperative is licensed by the CCD.
Yes.
But they have like 174 deposit-taking cooperatives. What does that mean? It means that these ones are actually put under prudential standards. There are those requirements you're talking about, liquidity, asset. There are requirements that they must abide by. So when Saccos, when the regulator realizes that they are not meeting those prudential standards, there is a laid out procedure. They go in, do inspections, they give administrative letters, and eventually if they don't meet those things, there is a consequence to that.
Citizens don't know a lot of these details, and that's where the problem comes. Yes. I grew up in a place where there was a coffee cooperative society, and it bought so many assets. And afterwards, we didn't know what happened to those assets. This is because some of the people who lead some of these organizations are so powerful that they pass resolutions and get a few people to agree and then dispose of this. I think that should be, we should stop politicizing the cooperative societies, because politicians want to put their own people, and then they are able to manipulate votes, that they comply with the regulations, but they are not doing the right thing. How can we get out of this politicization of something that has developed in this country?
And it's all the aspect of corporate governance. We'll come to you, and we just want to, because I can hear issue, and you were quoted also in the Business Daily saying, here, it says that the Commissioner of Cooperatives, Mary Mungai, told the Business Daily that weak governance and outright fraud were the biggest challenge facing the cooperative sector or the movement. The state, let me try and just zoom out that so that you can see, the State Department of Cooperatives has formed a special unit, that is the Ethics Commission for Cooperative Society, which is involved in tracking fraud in Saccos. ECOS has signed a memorandum of understanding with EACC to curb fraud in Saccos. Yes. So how systemic is this? If we have a whole department actually to try and curb this, how systemic is this?
What we're saying is that 1 trillion is a big figure. The savings you're talking about, 730 billion savings, is a big figure. And we are saying, because there is lack of information, just like our panelists have said, there is lack of information to the member. Communication is one thing that we want to enhance. The other thing is that we know, and it has been evident, there are few members coming, fronting, or thinking as a cooperative business model is driven by an individual. It is not. It is a member-empowered business. That's the difference. So because we are seeing that, what we are saying, we want to ensure that the cooperative movement, the penetration of cooperative in Kenya is deep. We would not mind having everybody a cooperative. So if we want to do that, we want to ensure we have sustainable arms of government that can actually just point out there's something wrong happening here, there's something wrong happening there. So one of the MOU issues that we are dealing there with the EACC is that corruption is not just in government, it is everywhere, it has permeated everywhere. How can we help the movement know the areas that are have risks in corruption? How can we ride on the platform of EACC? How can we ensure that members' funds are safe?
Okay.
So what we are trying to do is just ensuring that we bring every arm of government so that as the ministry, as the county, and because this is also a devolved function, as the county cooperative officers are trying to ensure compliance, there are other arms of government also helping us to oversee that this 1 trillion is safeguarded. So I'm saying we have very good cooperatives, but there are few that are also having management issues and which we need to rein on.
All right. Maybe we can hear, because Useki, you've been mentioned here, Stima Sacco, Mwalimu Sacco, and Ekesa all together. The perception out there is, and they're saying mismanagement or outright fraud by officials and board. How do you then explain this, and how did you appear in this particular list as Stima Sacco?
Thank you. And I wish to clarify something that has never been clear, neither to nation, neither to citizen, neither to any paper nor press that has captured things correctly in respect of Stima Sacco.
Yes, please.
Stima Investment Cooperative Society is not a Sacco. Stima Investment Cooperative Society is an investment cooperative society.
You see, that's the confusion we were talking about.
Yes.
Number 2, Stima Sacco is a Sacco. It's a savings and credit cooperative society. And these two are different. Now, the entity mentioned here is Stima Investment and not Stima Sacco.
Stima Investment Sacco.
No.
No.
Cooperative.
Stima Investment Cooperative Society.
Cooperative
not
Society.
Not a Sacco. Yes. So there are two entities here that need to be very clear to everybody, to the public, to nation, to citizen, to everybody, that Stima Sacco is a savings and credit cooperative society. Sacco means savings and credit
Of which now you're
society.
not under the leadership of that investment cooperative.
Not at all. Neither are we under it, nor is it under us. Stima Investment Cooperative Society is not under Stima Sacco, and neither is Stima Sacco under Stima Investment Cooperative Society.
This is confusing.
It shouldn't.
But this is what I said.
Yeah.
I mean,
it shouldn't.
People don't know.
People do not know.
The only common thing is Stima. That's the only common thing in those two names. Stima Investment Cooperative Society deals with real estate, it deals with shares, it deals with buildings, it deals with all such things that look like real estate. Stima Sacco is principally savings and credit cooperative society. We only save members' deposits and give them loans according to the way the commissioner has just
employees
explained.
of the power sector.
Okay, initially it was employees of the power sector, which has now, and then after the regulation of 2011, 2010, the common bond for Stima Sacco was opened so that we could even get members from elsewhere. So we have members from the Public Service Commission, we have members from...
So do we owe you an apology?
You surely do.
But why have you also not raised any special umbrage with the Business Daily to clarify this?
We did,
because
have
people been calling when we had this particular headlines to get clarification?
We did, and your editor said, no, they are not going to apologize, they won't withdraw that. At least the online publication was withdrawn or slightly
but
changed.
But we've not seen any press release from the Stima Sacco.
There even is. There is.
There is?
Yes, there is. Actually, we did a press release then, and we expected it to be in circulation and to be printed, and we didn't see anything. We complained. We even wrote a letter of complaint, and there was no change.
Bitangi, you want to comment?
Yes, I say the problem here is that the public needs to understand what is happening, such that people who, unscrupulous people, do not take advantage of the semantics and then mess up with the whole industry that has helped this country. That's number one. Number two, we need to move to a level where we can manage these things better than it has happened before. And then we must also hold people to account. Those who are in key institutions that monitor movement of resources in this country. As an individual, you can't move 1.1 million without being stopped or being asked where you are taking this money.
Yes.
But then you hear 1 billion moved from here to here. Then you ask yourself, is there a selective application of the law? Those are the questions that you actually need to take this forward and ask those questions. What happened?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's come back to Mary. Ekeza Sacco. Is it a Sacco? Is it a pyramid scheme? What is it? Because now there is no clarification, and many people from your sector saying this is not a Sacco. According to the governance that a Sacco should have, has it met the merit?
Let me say that when we talk about Saccos, Saccos are member-driven institutions. Once you start hearing a Sacco is being credited to an individual or two individuals, start having a problem. Because it is ours. We have come to solve a common need. Secondly, when you hear a Sacco, Savings and Credit Cooperative Society, having like, on the same coin, there's one side of Sacco, there's one side of investment or housing, there's commingling of funds there. And those are the things that we say. A Sacco's business is save, provide loan products that are in tandem with their members' needs.
Why can't the law specify? Why can't the law specify that any person with political interest, now religious, should not head such an order? Yes.
Yeah.
We have.
By the way, maybe just for comfort, I have just talked about the transport cooperative bylaws that we have designed. It is clear, even in the, what is it called, Code of Conduct. If you are now an MCA, if you are a politician, if you are holding a state office, you shouldn't be in the leadership. You can be a member, but you shouldn't be in the leadership, because we have seen those are bringing a few issues here and there. And I completely understand what you're saying, because sometimes you'll find a church starting a Sacco with good intention, and they give the leadership. And then the leadership, instead of once it comes into being, they transit and give to members so that it can be a member-driven. We still hold the highest leadership, which brings a problem. So I think we are trying to do that, and I want to say, actually, we are strengthening the regulations, especially for Saccos, because this is a very, very sensitive, which can be systematic in the country if something were to go wrong.
Okay.
So we are trying to be proactive in ensuring that that does not happen.
So is Ekeza a Sacco? You've not really answered if Ekeza is a Sacco. And if we have people using Saccos as a moniker, what sort of legislation should be there to try and prevent them, so that we don't have the public being misled that these are Saccos, right? We know also Cusco, I think, gave a provision for matatus to come up with these Saccos as well, and there's so many of them. So how do we differentiate these Saccos for matatu, the motorcycles as well, and also saving Saccos and the cooperative Saccos? You know, we don't get an understanding. We can see, oh, this particular matatu has this particular line under this Sacco. What are they?
Yeah, let me just maybe, because that transport cooperative is something that we really need to correct.
Please.
Something that went wrong. Because when you see a matatu Sacco written dash matatu Sacco on the body of the vehicle, that's not true, because it's doing transport business. And that's why I'm saying we have done bylaws that are in tandem with the business model they're doing. So very soon, and we have been working with NTSA and Ministry of Transport and Inspector General Office, is that very soon we are going to see it will be transport cooperatives, because Sacco is purely a savings issue, not on the on that particular.
But Mary, you've been slow on the up to try and do this. You as as a ministry to course correct this? It's been ongoing for long, and that's why we have people like Ekeza now taking advantage of the public because...
But I want to correct, Ekeza was not doing that kind of business. It was
not really, but I'm just giving an Ekeza of what it is, because right now is what is in the public, and we know billions have been lost, going down the tubes, and people are frustrated with this.
Yeah, we are slow, but you know some of these issues to develop, you need stakeholder participation. It takes time because it's a to and fro, but now the bylaws are in place. And I think the implementation is ongoing now. So that is addressed. But when we are talking about a Sacco, members, when you hear a Sacco telling you, the more you save, the more chances you stand to win, I mean, it's outright fraud. Where are they going to get money? Because every coin that goes to the Sacco is credited to an individual. And at the end of it all, that individual must get that money. Secondly, when we start saying, and I stand corrected, when we start saying a Sacco is promising you 50% interest rate, for goodness sake, where are they going to get this money from? I mean, ask yourself, where are they going to get this extra money to pay me? And it is a savings. We have come here together because I cannot afford higher interest rates. We are doing interest rates that suit us. Where is that money going to come from?
Right. So and this is where Bitang and Demo actually raises the issues of politicians, because we had also Governor Mwangi wa Iria, shilingi kwa shilingi. I think this was the most conspicuous of the Saccos collecting money from the public in Muranga Investment Cooperative Society Limited, whose shilingi kwa shilingi tagline caught the public eye. And the Sacco, an initiative by the governor, asks members of the public to save as little as 35 shillings a day in order to get dividend. And this is in violation of of the Constitution. I think the Capital Markets Authority rained on them because the changes was a violation of the Constitution of Kenya. I can't quite get the right section of it to actually Section 30 of the MCA Act that says no person shall in Kenya offer its securities for subscriptions or sell to the public or a section of the public unless prior to such offer it publishes an information memorandum signed by or on behalf of its officers and files a copy thereof with the Capital Markets Authority. Where we have politicians that we trust, and of course they're coming up with these particular schemes, what then is a remedial measure from the ministry?
The remedial measure from the ministry then would be for us to ensure our regulations, our code of conduct is understood by members. Because until and unless we understand, because as I say, please members, we are answering a common need. Let nobody cheat you that they are going to do supernatural things with your money. Cooperatives do legit business. Growth is organic. It doesn't just grow overnight. And please, when you hear somebody's growth is also exponentially large, think twice. We are always told when the deal is too good.
But for the sake of informing the public, and this is what I'm saying, that we create laws, we do all this, but the public doesn't understand.
Yes, it's communication.
He has asked a very good question. What classification is this organization in? And I didn't get the answer. Ekeza, what is it classified as?
What is it classified?
Okay.
Yes.
In 2014, it was registered as a Sacco, and I don't want to discuss this because we're in court.
But we're not discussing the merits and demerits of it.
Properly registered as a Sacco in 2014 to operate in a given county, Starehe. So that was a business model. But unfortunately, the promoters, because there is a requirement for registration, the promoters were there. And when the promoters were there, and they had gone through the normal requirement process by the county cooperative officers, and they meet the threshold, they were registered as a Sacco. But I think the idea of the promoter was different from a Sacco. He just wanted people to buy land. So, and this is where I'm saying when we have a twin in the same outfit, because if you look at it came to light when now we saw it was both a land buying and a cooperative put on the same letterhead. Those are alarms that are caused. So, and we are telling members, when you see that kind, please be alarmed, because savings should just deal with savings and credit.
Actually, the law is outdated, completely outdated, because we have moved to the digital space.
Yes.
You can't say you are in Nairobi. Most people who come to Nairobi, including myself, I live in the diaspora, Kiambu, others in Kajiado, others in Nakuru. So when the law puts restrictions, they assume that we live in those ages when people lived in one place, and it becomes very difficult. And you don't know what happens when they do it outside of maybe using the digital platforms to do that.
Yeah, true, it could be outdated, but we are saying what is the basis of a cooperative entity? We are coming together because of economies of scale. If you look at the model of a Sacco, do we bring in, what collateral do we bring in? We guarantee one another. It's a member who knows one another. So if when I go on platform and I start subscribing or paying my deposit, I'm in, say, Turkana, and most members are in Nairobi, how will you ever get a loan? Okay. So this is really a common community empowerment. And that's why we call it social economic development.
The last weakest point, because I wanted to raise the
yes,
weak
please,
points.
it is good. Yeah.
I'm a member, say, Stima, Sacco. I'm retiring, I'm exiting. How often are the assets valued, especially if we built a building in Nairobi which has appreciated to 1 billion, and we are the people who financed it? How often do you do valuation so that I get my right?
Well, yeah. I think the law is very clear currently as we talk. A Sacco cannot invest in those buildings beyond a certain limit. And therefore, because of the needs of people, because Saccos or cooperatives emerge because of people's needs. In the first place, if they began by wanting to have loans and, easy cash to do their things, they will start with a Sacco. But as time goes by, there is a possibility of wanting now the housing. And particularly now in Kenya, housing and real estate is the real thing. That's why you see a lot of now double dealings. I mean, some Saccos starting investment wings or investment companies or investment.
What is the protection?
I'll come to that. I wanted to come to that. And therefore, when an entity is formed, it is formed completely. Like, let's say now it's an investment that is being, or housing cooperatives. That housing cooperative has complete analysis in its bylaw of how the assets of it are going to remain, how they are going to be devolved, so that now, depending on the bylaw of the housing cooperative, there may be evaluation requirement that every so often there will be evaluation. But the shares of a cooperative do not increase or decrease, because in a cooperative, it is one man, one vote. And your share is as was and does not increase, because a cooperative does not have a limit as to how many members it should admit or a limit of shares. And therefore, there is a mechanism spelled out into how, if you have to exit the entity, how you exit. And even we do have what is called nominees. If you have to exit completely from the world, there is also someone to whom your interest in the Sacco or in the cooperative devolves. And so you benefit from, if it is a housing cooperative, it is possible that you are supposed to be housed in a certain way, or bought assets in a certain way, and you're expected to benefit in the course of time. And so when it comes to your time of exit, you then exit in accordance with the policy,
right? Thank
or
you.
the bylaw.
But I think the whole issue, the whole issue you're raising is about deposits protection, right? You're saying no?
I thought what he was trying to say is that today we start Steamer Sacco, it's on ground zero.
Yes.
20 years down the line, Steamer Sacco is what it is.
It is?
What it
Yes.
is. It's
What it
known,
is.
it's a brand.
Yes.
It's a brand.
Yes.
It's a brand.
Yes.
Yes, it's a brand. He's asking
I
how do we
contributed
handle
to
it?
that, yes.
And he contributed towards that.
Oh, fantastic.
One thing
Okay.
is that you put in shares, isn't it? And they have grown over time. Because, what I'm saying, yes, what I'm saying, his deposits, we said they will be refunded.
Yes.
And they will be refunded because he's been enjoying interest on, what is it? On deposits and dividends on shares. He's been enjoying that.
Yes. Yes.
And some of them are giving very unsustainable interest and dividends as we stand. But he's been enjoying those. However, having said that, actually we are working on a paper, Mr. Ndemo, to ensure that surely these shares of mine, if I contributed 1,000 and 30 years down the line, I'm still going to be refunded 1,000 or 1,500, does it make sense?
Doesn't make sense, yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And he rightly said, today the subscription for cooperative is open-ended. If you look at the East African bill that is yet to be passed, the East African cooperative bill that is yet to be passed, actually they are trying to say, can we have a cap? And as we go towards that, because I think we'll be going, we like it, we don't, we'll be going towards that. And it doesn't mean that when you have a cap, it is fixed permanently. You can review depending on your strategic plan. So we are saying we have something that we call a shared trading platform for cooperatives. And we have had even engaged CMA and all the other, NSC and all the other players. It was at very advanced stages. But you think, you know, everything new that has resistance. Because honestly, I do not think I should get 1,000 shares, yet the brand of that particular cooperative now is very enlightened.
Right. But I think it's important to clarify that the challenge we are facing now regarding the valuation of shares and all that, it's a recent thing. And why recent is because until the regulation came in 2011, deposits of members used to be called shares.
Yes.
And it is only after regulation did there become a demarcation that let there be shares and let there be deposits. And every cooperative, every Sacco, let me talk about Sacco, was required to now specify the shares which will not be refundable and deposits. And you realize that in most of the Saccos, the shares is a very small amount. And that's why you hear what was being mentioned here, that the institutional capital, the capital is thin.
Yes.
It's thin because members do not want to invest so much in shares which shares do not appreciate. And that's what the commissioner is saying, they are working on something to cause them now to appreciate.
And I think I just want to finish. I mean,
Vitange, you're leaving us, or are you going in a few minutes?
Yeah, 1 shilling today is not the same shilling 50 years ago. This building probably was built for 300 million shillings. Today it is worth like 10 billion. Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
My very own mother belongs to a cooperative society.
Yes.
You know, when she died, nobody told us what shares, but we know the cooperative society owned buildings all over the place, that not even the beneficiary benefited from her investments in a cooperative society. This is what we need to deal with if we have to improve this in the days to come.
In fact, if cooperative is to move, this free rider syndrome, we call it free rider syndrome, that
That's
I come
very
in, I pay 1,000, somebody paid 1,000 20 years ago, I'm still paying 1,000, and I'm enjoying benefits that somebody else has invested. So that is what we are saying, and I think you're right, and we are I think we are working on it.
All right, Bitange, you got to leave right now?
I have to leave.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And as we're leaving, we want also to appreciate your contribution this morning, and we look forward. Of course, this conversation will go on also with all the sector players being here, so that we can get a full scope of what we have, especially from the regulatory perspective as well. But talking on the issue of deposit protection, because but you still have a mic on you.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they remember that technology.
Yes.
Technology, the legislation around branding, and all this. That's what we need to see.
Right. Thank you, Bitange Ndemo. And of course, that has been the headline. If you may just put it back, that raise alarm, and we are here to clarify this: why 1 trillion shillings Kenya Saccos are taking time bomb, and we are holding court with Mary Mugai. She is Commissioner of Cooperatives, Ministry of Trade and Industrialization, and also I do have with us here. This is Chris Useki, who is the CEO of Steamer Sacco, and he's giving clarification that this is not the Steamer Investment Cooperative Sacco. This is a Steamer Sacco, where we're having all this, of course, confusion as far as the names are concerned, and we are breaking them down for you to get a clarity on what they are as well. We have also tweets which are streaming in. We have Faith Wahinya. She's saying that my worry is, are the poor Kenyans going to get back their hard-earned money? The figure given there, desperately asking back for their cash. And if you can ask me no one is willing to save again with Sacco. And I think this is going to show just going to show how people have bugbears and fears right now. We have also Simon Bugwa on Twitter saying, good morning, lady and gentlemen. The problem with the Saccos is the Department of Cooperatives in Kenya. Was there an auditor who audited the Saccos in question? The commissioner normally has cooperative officers in any sub-county. So many Kenyans are suffering. And of course, we'll get clarification from Mary as well. But as we're talking about deposit protection, levy to set up the deposit guarantee fund, similar to the deposit protection fund for commercial banks. That was, I think, mooted years back. And this is where we're having also the confusion on shares and deposits, right? So we have a levy that I think Saccos, Steamer Sacco also, you normally, contribute to that particular deposit protection fund. It's supposed to. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Why?
Well, I hope
what is that?
Well, the regulator was here. It's not yet set up. We have not had the mechanism of remitting the deposit protection fund, but it's there. The deposit guarantee fund. It's there in the Sacco Act, and
so the implementation is a problem.
Well, we don't have mechanism yet. I've not had any mechanism to now start operating it.
But Mary, since we had this particular act and now, what is informing the slow uptake?
There has been a study, and I thought you'd mention about it.
There have
been, of course, all these things that before they're put into, before they're implemented, we must understand the background you're coming from. We must put the right mechanism before it is rolled out. And I think, actually, I wish Mwaka was here because he has the concrete information. But there is progress towards that direction, because it is critical that we have a deposit guarantee fund in line with the law and in line to ensure that there is trust out there for Saccos, because as we say, we want to have just a fallback mechanism on collapsing.
So what is the mechanism right now if we don't have this particular guarantee, which is anchored in law and is not implemented? I don't know. You can tell me, Useki. Yeah.
Well, I
think
in
case of insolvency, God forbid that Steamer Saccos go down the tube, then how are we making sure that our deposits are guaranteed?
I think, as the commissioner puts it, in the Sacco movement, it's not like the regulator will wake up and say, let this guarantee fund be and tell everybody, do this. There usually is a lot of participation. And I think what the commissioner and the regulator have been doing.
What participation are we talking about? This is just a provision from the law. It is just to implement. What are we talking about? What participation are we talking about?
The buy-in, but just
there has to be a buy-in, and this is a provision from the law. I don't follow. Mary, you should tell us.
I don't want to answer that directly. But because, honestly, there should be a buy-in. Why? Let's assume Stima Sacco is very well run. Sacco B is not very well run. Stima Sacco would be worried if we are putting this money, are we putting in this money to ensure that the Sacco that is not run very well will keep on falling, and I am pumping my members' money there. Those are things that, so that's the framework that we are trying to do to ensure that governance within every institution is at its highest, so that when we do that, it's actually, we are protecting members' funds because of those are very unlikely events, not just normal mismanagement of...
All right, thank you. I think the whole thing revolves around the membership. When you look at the Sacco, the way a Sacco looks, a Sacco is run by the member, and it's owned by the member. Actually, that's the biggest distinction of a Sacco or a cooperative from any other entity. The customers are the members, and the owners are the members. And so, as much as you would want, for example, if, for example, the commissioner and SASRA said, let there be a deposit protection levy and let every Sacco pay so much. You see, according to the bylaw of that institution, that Sacco, members are supposed to authorize this or the other.
Thank you.
If it wasn't in the bylaw, if it wasn't in the budget, now they will be in breach of their constitution. And there are consequences.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so,
right, let's also rope in William, who's hanging on the line. He has a question for the panelists. Good morning, William.
Hello, good morning.
Morning to you.
Yeah, well, I have a question. Now that I'm listening to what you're talking about,
yes,
actually it's captured my interest.
Yes.
There is one segment that you've not spoken about, which are the self-help group.
The self-help group, yes?
Yeah, the self-help group.
Yes.
Bitang and Demo just gave an example, which I saw falls exactly within what I'm going through right now.
Yes.
When he said his mother passed on without getting any benefit from
yes,
that.
Yes.
Well, my issue, I've got the very same in a self-help group, which is a fully fledged thing to the extent of Stima Sacco. They work more or less the same, but once you try to follow these cases, I mean, who regulates them? You come to find it's a bit dizzy. You don't know who regulates them. I tried to seek help from the tribunal, from the cooperatives tribunal. They told me, well, the self-help groups, we do not regulate them. They work like us, but a bit hidden. Well, you just check with the government offices just to find out who regulates them. I would like you to expound, or the panel to expound on that. Who are these Caritas or whatever, or self-help groups? Because what I'm talking about is the Caritas. They're known under the Caritas, which is a church thing.
Right.
But self-help groups. Could you please expound on that, or the panel expound on that? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, William. And I think we've taken a mental note of that. Yes. Mary, we have also Maurice on the line. Good morning, Maurice.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. A question, a contribution? You can fire away.
Yes, in fact, I have 3 questions.
For the interest of time, could we just take 2, please?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, and the brevity is of answers.
I'll ask 2.
Hello. Yeah, Maurice, continue. Hello, good morning, Maurice. Do we have Maurice online, please? Right, as we are waiting for Maurice to actually ask his question, we can actually clarify on what William was asking.
Yeah, I think self-help groups are registered by the Ministry of Gender and Social Development, and they fall within that framework. And I think their officers both at the county and national, who actually oversee how the self-help groups are run. So for that, I will not be able to give a concrete, but there is a ministry responsible for that, but they don't fall under.
And your ministry, that is Trade and Industry and the Cooperatives. So which ministry is this, by the way?
Gender.
Gender.
Social, yeah.
Oh, gender.
Gender, social, labor, and social and development. Yeah.
Okay. Useki?
Well, what I can do offer is we do have a number of self-help groups, and we help them to become more professional, to manage their resources better. We train them. We give them how to do bookkeeping. I mean, so if it's a certain self-help group that could require some assistance, we will be of help. We will be able to assist. But as for how they are regulated, who regulates them, it's the Ministry of Labor. It's that ministry. I don't think I have much.
Okay. We're still, okay, but there's a question here from Tony Mwisho. He's asking, but I'm given to understand Morris is back online. Morris, sorry we had, of course, you dropping on the line, but your question and your contribution briefly.
I'm the secretary of TAFOM Sacco in Athi River, and I have two questions.
Yes, please.
Now, our Sacco is registered as a savings and credit cooperative society. And now when we are talking, Madam Mary was talking about the loan and the people guaranteeing each other so that we carry the burden together.
Yes.
Now, a time comes that somebody has been guaranteed loan and is defaulting, is not paying that loan. Then this man, maybe the common bond where we work, we are under 4 Mattresses Limited. We are workers, and also we open the bond. Now we have some members who are not the workers of TAFOM Mattresses.
Yes, yes.
And now these people, somebody takes a loan and he goes, he defaults, he does not pay it back. Now the members who guaranteed him this loan is trying to get him so that they can pay back the loan. But now our law says that once you guaranteed somebody a loan and he defaults, you are the person to pay that loan. Now, after we've deducted the money from the guarantor to repay the loan, how can this guarantor be helped to get the person who they guaranteed to claim their money back? That is question number one.
Yes.
Then question number two, now that we are a credit and saving cooperative society,
yes,
and we can also decide that we want to do investment, maybe in building, we buy a plot and we build some houses for rent. Now, how can we go about it so that we get the interest for those members who have gone out? Now, maybe they have retired from the job and now they're back home, and they have some investment that they left in Athi River or in whichever place we did the building. How are we going to help them so that they get the interest from
Thank you.
houses?
Thank you, Morris, for those questions. And as you're finally also winding up, Tony Mwisho is asking, kindly ask your panelists, why would a member of a certain cooperative start an enterprise economy, or enterprise company, I should say, using the name of the cooperative, e.g. Steamer Society versus Steamer Enterprise? Yeah, why would they do that, which now embroils a lot of us in confusion? Just we can try and ask these questions as we're winding up. This is Useki and Mary as well. Let's begin with you, Commissioner.
Okay, maybe just to answer the gentleman that is from Athi River.
Yeah.
Their bylaws.
You'd be able to do this in a minute?
Oh, it's a minute. Okay.
Yes, so very briefly.
Okay, there is a cooperative tribunal. They can use that arm. There is, oh no, now I had a few. What I'm saying is that cooperatives are very important in this country. 90% according to a World Bank report, low affordable homes is through cooperatives. So please ensure when you get into a cooperative, you are involved in the decision making. Ensure that you put aspects that really favor you as members. Ensure you put leaders that are honest, trustworthy, because cooperatives are really run on issues of honesty and trust. And that is fundamental. However, having said that, we are living in a digital age. Please, as we put leaders, let us know leaders understand some of these aspects that are emerging, especially on, please ensure as leaders, you do not go outside, you comply with the bylaws, because we have county and national officers overseeing you. Remember, we have entered into an MOU with the EACC. Remember, we are now going to use other arms of government after our Cooperative Societies Act powers.
Thank you, thank you. Let's hear from Sacco.
Quickly, I want to mention what can be done to help the members who have guaranteed someone,
in a minute. In a minute. Yes.
Sure. There is the cooperative tribunal. If you are paid and can prove to the tribunal that you are paid for my loan, the tribunal will enter a summary judgment against the person whom you are paid loans for, and you will have authority.
This is for the loan defaulter.
Yes, the loan defaulter.
Yes.
And their assets can be attached, or whatever else they have can be attached to recover the money that has been paid on their behalf. And so I would advise them, whether it is in their bylaw or not, to go to the cooperative tribunal.
Right,
they will be able to be assisted.
20 seconds.
There are members out there being used by people who want to start individual cooperatives to become promoters. Be wary. Once your information is here in the head office, and that was a pyramid-like scheme, you will be held accountable for promoting an illegal entity.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much, Chris Oseki, who is the CEO of Steamer Sacco, and not Steamer
Investment Cooperative
that is here as alleged before. We thank you so much for coming through, and Mary Mungai, who is the Commissioner of Cooperatives, Ministry of Trade and Industrialization. Thank you for clarification. A lot of issues that we should have shared here, but I thank you nonetheless that for the given time you've actually taken us through this fair understanding that we have right now. Questions are still there about what is happening with the mergers, what is happening with the credit bureau reference as well as far as Saccos is concerned. These are things we'll discuss even when we have the regulator here who failed to come today, and also Cusco, and also from the Parliamentary Trade and Cooperative Trade and Industrialization. That is, I invited Kanini Kega as well. But we'll have a robust discussion on this later, maybe in the month. Thank you very much for your valued company. My name is Debarl Inea.